poor veteran took the rusted ship nobody wanted for free. Inside was a $200 million secret. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Imagine this. A man with little to his name, a veteran, standing on the edge of what seemed like a hopeless future. For years, his life had been nothing but a struggle, scraping by just to make ends meet. He was a former soldier, a man who once had a purpose, but now, life had cast him aside. And yet, despite everything, there was still a fire in him, something that refused to burn out. One day, he stumbled upon something that would change everything, something that no one else seemed to care about. It was an old, rusted ship, abandoned on a forgotten dock. The kind of ship that nobody would even look twice at. The paint was chipped, the hull was cracked, and it seemed like it had been left to rot for years. But there was something about it that called to him. Perhaps it was the way the ship's lines still held a certain elegance, hidden beneath the layers of grime and neglect. Or maybe it was the chance to finally own something, anything, that might give him a fresh start. The ship had been up for grabs, no one else wanted it, and it was just sitting there, free for the taking. People laughed at him when they saw him there. "What are you going to do with that piece of junk?" they asked. They mocked him for even considering it. But the veteran didn't care. He didn't need their approval. He had nothing left to lose. So, with the help of a small loan from a friend and his dog by his side, he took the ship. As he stepped aboard, he could hear the creaking of the wood and the groaning of the metal, but there was something oddly comforting about it. It was his now. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of ownership, of control. But as he began to clean the ship and look through its old compartments, something unexpected happened. Hidden away in the deepest corner of the vessel was a sealed compartment, rusted shut, but still intact. With some effort, the veteran pried it open, not knowing what to expect. What he found inside was beyond anything he could have imagined. The compartment was filled with old, dusty documents and maps, along with a strange collection of items. But there was one thing that caught his eye, an old ledger, its pages yellowed with age, containing a series of cryptic notes and numbers. His heart raced as he flipped through the pages. As he continued reading, he realized that the numbers pointed to something extraordinary, a treasure, a vast fortune hidden beneath the ship. For a moment, he couldn't believe it. Could this really be happening? The ship, this rusted, worthless vessel, was hiding millions. No, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of treasure, locked away for decades. The veteran's mind raced as he tried to process what he had just discovered. How could such a thing go unnoticed for so long? Was it possible that no one had known? He thought back to all the years he had spent struggling, living from paycheck to paycheck, and the possibility of finally escaping his troubles, of making a future for himself, began to feel real. He could hardly believe it, but the documents were clear. There was no mistaking it. The ship had been hiding something truly valuable, something worth $200 million. He had gone from being homeless and forgotten to standing at the brink of unimaginable wealth. But with the discovery came a new question. What would he do with this fortune? The answers wouldn't come easily, but for the first time in years, the veteran felt a spark of hope. The rusted ship, the one that nobody else wanted, had turned out to be the key to his future. I have to admit, I was a little hesitant at first. The ship that nobody wanted now seemed like it could be a life-changing opportunity. I had spent years just surviving, but this felt different. With the treasure map in my hands, I could almost taste the possibility of a new beginning. The thought of it was overwhelming, but there was no turning back. I had to follow this through. The next few days passed in a blur. I could barely sleep, consumed by the weight of what I had discovered. The ship felt different now, like it had become a portal to a new life, one I had never dared to dream of. Each time I worked on it, I kept wondering, was I really ready for this? Was this fortune meant for someone like me? I didn't know. But one thing was certain. The ship had a secret, a $200 million secret, and I was the one who found it. I started researching more, following the clues in the ledger, the strange numbers and cryptic notes, hoping they would lead me to the treasure. It was like chasing shadows in the dark. The more I looked, the more questions I had. Where exactly was it hidden? And who had placed it there? I didn't have all the answers, but I had something that mattered more than answers, a purpose. I wanted to understand why this treasure had been left behind, why the ship had been abandoned, and why I had been chosen to find it. A few weeks later, I was no closer to finding the treasure, but the ship was slowly starting to take shape again. I had cleaned it up, repaired what I could, and it felt like it had a life of its own. The rust had started to come off, and the metal gleamed like it had been waiting for someone to bring it back to life. It felt like I was fixing more than just the ship. I was fixing my life, too. One evening, as I worked alone on the deck, the dog, Ash, began barking. It was unlike any bark I had ever heard. His tail was stiff, his ears pricked, and he was fixated on something in the distance. I couldn't see anything at first, but then I noticed something strange. A shadow, moving just beyond the trees. My heart raced. Who could be out here in the middle of nowhere? The town was miles away, and there were no other ships nearby. I grabbed the flashlight and headed towards the edge of the ship, feeling a sense of unease creeping up my spine. As I approached the railing, the shadow disappeared. I was left standing there, alone with my thoughts. What was that? Was it someone following me? A chill ran through me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't the only one who knew about the ship's secret. The thought of someone else hunting for the treasure made me nervous. I wasn't ready to share it. This was my chance, my one shot at something more than just surviving. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the shadow, about the possibilities. What if there were others who knew about the treasure? I had to be more careful. The next morning, I decided to take a break from searching for the treasure. I needed a moment to clear my head, to step away from the madness that had consumed me since I found the ledger. I took Ash for a walk along the shore. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the water, and for a brief moment, everything felt peaceful. The storm from the previous week had cleared, and the lake was calm, like a mirror reflecting the sky. It was hard to believe that just a few weeks ago, I had been homeless, barely scraping by. Now, I was standing on the edge of something unimaginable. I could feel the weight of it, the responsibility that came with the discovery. But I was determined to see it through. I had come this far, and I couldn't back down now. The ship, the treasure, everything, it was my second chance. But I had to be careful. If anyone else found out about the treasure, it could be taken away from me, just like everything else in my life. The next morning, I returned to the ship, my resolve stronger than ever. As I stepped onto the deck, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I was ready to face whatever came next. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I was no longer the man who had been forgotten. I was the man who had found the secret, the man who had a future. And I was going to make sure that nothing stood in my way. I had to make a choice. The ship, the treasure, everything I had been hoping for was finally within my reach. But now, it felt like something was about to slip through my fingers. Every time I thought I had control, something new happened that made me question everything. The night after my walk along the shore, the strange feeling from earlier that day didn't go away. In fact, it grew stronger. I kept looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone was watching me. But I couldn't let fear stop me. I had to keep moving forward. That morning, I gathered my courage and went back to the ship. The treasure was still out there, hidden beneath the layers of history, and I was determined to uncover it. But when I stepped aboard, the atmosphere felt different. The ship no longer felt like a forgotten relic of the past. It felt like it was waiting for me to find the next piece of the puzzle. Ash, always alert, seemed to sense something too. His ears were perked, his body tense as he paced around the deck. It was as if he knew that whatever was hidden on that ship was something worth guarding. As I moved deeper into the ship, checking each compartment, I finally found it. Behind an old, rusted panel that had been pushed against the back wall, I discovered another hatch, one I hadn't noticed before. It was sealed shut, much like the compartment I had opened earlier, but this one was different. There was no keyhole, no lock. It was just a panel that seemed almost meant to be opened. My heart raced as I grabbed the crowbar and pried it loose. As the panel moved, I could feel the weight of years, of secrets, bearing down on me. When it finally gave way, I could see a small staircase descending into the depths of the ship. My instincts screamed at me to stop, but my curiosity, my need to know what was down there, pushed me forward. Ash stood at the top of the stairs, staring down into the dark space, his tail low, his growl barely audible. There was something about that staircase that felt wrong, but I couldn't turn back. I had come too far. I stepped into the darkness, the air growing colder as I descended. The creaking of the ship echoed around me, the silence pressing in on me like a thick fog. I held my breath as I reached the bottom, and as my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw it. A large chest, buried beneath a thick layer of dust. It was old, the wood faded and cracked, but the lock was new, shiny, almost out of place in such a forgotten place. My heart pounded as I reached for the lock. I had no idea what I would find, but I knew it was important. I pulled at it, and it gave way easily. Inside the chest, there was a collection of maps, old artifacts, and papers, documents that, when I read them, confirmed the unimaginable. The treasure was real, hidden beneath this ship. But there was more, much more. There were names written on the papers, names of people who had hidden it, people who had come before me. I realized then that this wasn't just about money. It was about a legacy, a history that had been hidden from the world for generations. But as I read on, the story took an even darker turn. The ship wasn't just a ship. It had been a symbol, a key to something much greater, something bigger than I could have imagined. This wasn't just a treasure hunt. It was the beginning of something far more complex, something that reached back in time and spread into the present. I stood there, alone in the ship's bowels, realizing that I had just unlocked a mystery that had been waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it. My discovery had just become much larger than I had ever anticipated. I was no longer just a man trying to get by, hoping for a better life. I had become part of something much bigger, a legacy, a mystery, and now, I had to figure out how it all fit together, what it all meant. I had come for the treasure, but now, I was in the middle of something I could never have predicted. This wasn't just about wealth. This was about understanding something far greater, something that could change everything. I stood there in the dimly lit room, surrounded by the remnants of a past long forgotten. The chest in front of me was open, its contents spilling out in a chaotic mess of old papers, maps, and artifacts. But amidst the disorder, one thing stood out, an old, leather-bound journal. My fingers trembled as I reached for it, the weight of what I was about to uncover sinking in. The journal was worn, its pages yellowed with age, and the ink was fading in places. But the moment I opened it, I knew I was holding something significant. It was written in a language I didn't immediately recognize, a strange mix of symbols and text that seemed almost archaic. As I flipped through the pages, I realized that this wasn't just a journal. It was a map, a key to understanding the treasure I had uncovered, and perhaps more importantly, the story of the ship itself. The deeper I read, the more I understood that the treasure was merely a small part of something far larger. The journal told the story of a hidden society, a group of individuals who had protected the ship's secret for generations. The ship, it seemed, was more than just a vessel. It was a symbol, a marker of something that had been lost to time. The treasure was only the beginning. The journal described a hidden chamber, a final resting place for a secret so powerful that it could change the course of history. And now, I was the one who had discovered it. But the question remained, what was I supposed to do with this knowledge? The ship had already begun to change my life, but now, it felt like I was being pulled deeper into a mystery that I wasn't sure I was ready for. I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. The ship had a history, and that history had to be protected. There was more to this than just finding a treasure. This was about preserving something far more valuable. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the ship was never meant to be found by just anyone. It had been waiting for the right person, someone who could understand its significance, someone who could protect its legacy. I wasn't sure I was that person, but I was in it now. I had no choice but to continue. The journal led me to a hidden compartment beneath the ship, one I hadn't noticed before. It was tucked away in a corner, buried beneath layers of dust and debris. The moment I uncovered it, I felt a shift, as though the ship was acknowledging my presence, as though it knew I was meant to find this. Inside the compartment, there was a small box, intricately carved and sealed with wax. The seal was unbroken, the markings on it matching those from the journal. My heart raced as I carefully opened the box. Inside, there was a small, silver key. It was old, its edges worn, but it gleamed in the dim light. It felt heavy in my hand, as though it held the weight of centuries. I knew immediately that this key was the key to unlocking the final mystery of the ship. But what did it open? And where? The journal provided no further clues, only more questions. The answer, it seemed, was waiting for me somewhere else. But I didn't know where to look next. I sat down on the deck, holding the key in my hand, staring out at the water. The silence around me was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the ship. I was alone, with nothing but this key and the weight of the mystery that surrounded it. I realized then that my life had changed forever. I had come here seeking something simple, a new start, a chance to rebuild. But I had found something far more complicated. The ship wasn't just a ship. It was a doorway, a threshold to something greater. And I had no idea what lay on the other side. The key in my hand seemed to pulse with an energy of its own, as if it was waiting for me to make the next move. It felt like a call to action, a summons to step into a story that was much bigger than I had ever imagined. I had no answers, no map, no guide. All I had was this key, this ship, and a deep sense that I was meant to uncover the truth. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the water, I made a decision. I would find out what this key opened. No matter what it took, I would unlock the mystery of the ship, and in doing so, unlock the next chapter of my life. I stood there, staring at the silver key in my hand, unsure of what to do next. I had uncovered a treasure beyond my wildest dreams, but with it came more questions than answers. What exactly was this key meant to open? And where? The ship, which had been abandoned for so long, was now alive with secrets, each corner and every creak of its walls whispering stories of its past. But this key, this small, silver object, was the catalyst that would lead me to the final chapter of its story. I needed to find the lock it opened. I spent the next few days examining every inch of the ship, hoping that the answer would reveal itself. The ship was vast, its rusted metal and decaying wood hiding hidden compartments and forgotten rooms. I knew the key had to fit somewhere, but the question was where. My mind raced as I retraced my steps, thinking back to the journal and the cryptic clues it contained. The journal had mentioned a final resting place, a hidden chamber where everything would be revealed. But it didn't specify where that place was. Every time I thought I was getting close, I was met with dead ends. Yet, something inside me told me that I was on the right path, that I just needed to dig deeper. It was on the fourth night of searching that I finally found it. I had been going through the lower decks, checking every hatch and panel once again. That was when I noticed it, a faint outline on the floor, almost invisible beneath the dust and debris. It was a square, with edges worn from years of neglect, but the shape was unmistakable. This was it. This was the door that the key had been waiting for. I knelt down, brushing away the years of dirt and grime, and for the first time, I felt a sense of certainty. The ship seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for me to unlock the mystery it had kept hidden for so long. My hands trembled as I inserted the key into the small, rusted lock. The sound it made as it turned was like a sigh, as if the ship was releasing a breath it had been holding for decades. With a quiet creak, the door opened. The air inside was thick with dust, and the faint smell of old wood and metal filled my nose. It was dark, the only light coming from the flickering flashlight I held in my hand. But as I stepped inside, I felt the weight of history, the weight of all the years this room had remained untouched. I couldn't help but feel a shiver down my spine. This was it. This was the final piece of the puzzle. Inside the room, I found more than I could have ever imagined. The walls were lined with old books, journals, and maps, each one a piece of the ship's history. There were also strange artifacts, relics of a time long past, things that didn't belong to the world I knew. But it was in the center of the room that I found the real treasure. A large chest, covered in intricate carvings, stood in the middle of the room. The chest was old, its wood darkened with age, but it was clearly important. I had found the heart of the ship's secret. I approached it slowly, my heartbeat quickening. The chest was locked, but the silver key I held seemed to beckon me. As I inserted it into the lock, I could feel the weight of what was about to happen. The chest opened with a soft click, and inside, I found something I never could have imagined. It wasn't gold or jewels, as I had expected. Instead, it was a collection of documents, letters, and more maps. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. But as I began to read, the pieces began to fall into place. The documents told the story of the ship's true purpose. It had not been built for trade or transport. It had been built as a sanctuary, a place to hide something far more valuable than any treasure. The ship had been used to protect a powerful secret, one that could change the course of history. The letters were written by the original owners of the ship, detailing their efforts to protect this secret from the world. They had created a network, hidden beneath the ship, designed to keep the secret safe. And now, I was the one who had discovered it. The ship had chosen me. I felt a surge of responsibility, but also a sense of pride. I had unlocked something that no one else had been able to for centuries. But with this discovery came a new challenge. I had to protect it, just as the ship's original owners had done. I couldn't let the secret fall into the wrong hands. I was no longer just a man searching for treasure. I was now the guardian of something much greater. As I stood in that room, surrounded by the history of the ship, I knew that my life had changed forever. I had come here seeking wealth, but I had found something far more valuable. I had found purpose. I couldn't shake the feeling that the discovery was only the beginning. The chest, the documents, the silver key, it all felt like pieces of a larger puzzle, and now I was the one who had to put it all together. The ship had been guarding this secret for decades, but now that I had unlocked it, I was responsible for making sure it didn't fall into the wrong hands. But there was more to it than just the treasure hidden within the chest. The letters, the maps, and the strange symbols all pointed to something else, something greater than anything I had imagined. The ship was no ordinary vessel. It was a key, a gateway to a legacy that stretched back through history. And as much as I wanted to turn away from it, to just take the treasure and walk away, I knew that I couldn't. This was bigger than me. It was bigger than anyone. The more I read through the documents, the more I understood that I was not alone in this. There were others, people who had been searching for the same answers, who had been hunting for the ship and its secrets for years. I could feel their presence, like a shadow over my shoulder, as if they were waiting for me to make a mistake. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how deep this ran. I wasn't just protecting a treasure. I was protecting history, a history that had been hidden for a reason. The ship had been built to guard something powerful, something so important that entire families had dedicated their lives to keeping it safe. But why? What was so important about it that it had to be hidden away for all these years? These were the questions that plagued my mind as I walked the ship's decks, trying to make sense of it all. And then, just as I thought I might have figured it out, the ship gave me another surprise. One of the letters I had missed earlier, buried beneath a pile of old, faded maps, was different from the others. It was dated far more recently, in the last few years, and it was signed by someone I had never heard of. The letter was addressed to someone else, someone who seemed to know everything about the ship's secret, someone who had been searching for it for as long as I had. The letter warned of danger, of people who were now aware of the ship's location, people who would stop at nothing to get their hands on its secrets. The letter also contained a cryptic message, something about a hidden room, a final destination where the ship's true purpose would be revealed. I didn't know what to make of it. The thought of someone else hunting the same treasure was enough to make me nervous, but the idea that there were others out there, people who knew about the ship and what it held, made the danger feel real. And just when I thought I could no longer take the pressure, something changed. I received a visit. It wasn't expected, and it wasn't something I wanted. But it was inevitable. I had been discovered. A man, tall and thin with sharp eyes, appeared on the shore one afternoon, just as I was finishing some repairs on the ship. He didn't introduce himself, didn't ask for permission to board. He simply walked up, and without a word, looked at the ship as if he knew exactly what it was. I froze, unsure of what to do. Should I confront him? Should I ignore him? His presence sent a chill down my spine. There was something off about him. But he wasn't alone. Another man, older, with a weathered face and a tired expression, stood at the edge of the dock, watching. I couldn't help but feel the weight of their gaze. They knew. They knew what I had found. And they weren't here to congratulate me. They were here for something else. The younger man, sensing my hesitation, finally spoke. His voice was low, but there was a sharpness to it that sent a ripple of fear through me. "We know what you found," he said, his words cutting through the silence. "And we're here to make sure you don't make a mistake." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The ship wasn't just a treasure, it was a target. And I was its protector, whether I liked it or not. The younger man's eyes locked onto mine, and I could see the challenge in them. He wasn't threatening me directly, but I knew what he meant. The ship's secret was out, and now I had to decide whether I would keep it safe or let it fall into the wrong hands. The weight of responsibility felt heavier than ever. I had come here to escape my past, to rebuild my life. But now, it seemed, my past had caught up with me, and it was asking for something I wasn't sure I was ready to give. The man stepped back, his gaze never leaving me, and I realized that my life had changed once again. I wasn't just guarding a ship, I was guarding something far more dangerous. The treasure had never been just about gold or jewels. It was about power, about a legacy that could change the course of history. I wasn't sure I was ready for that, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't turn back now. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The words of the younger man echoed in my head, a warning, a challenge. We know what you found, and we're here to make sure you don't make a mistake. His cold gaze sent a shiver down my spine. I had spent so much time focused on uncovering the treasure, never considering the consequences of finding something so powerful. But now, standing there on the ship, it was clear that the stakes were higher than I ever imagined. The ship wasn't just a treasure. It was a key to something much bigger, something that others were willing to go to extreme lengths to control. The younger man stepped forward, closer than I was comfortable with, but I stood my ground. What do you want? I asked, trying to sound confident despite the fear creeping in. He smiled slightly, almost as if he were amused by my question. We want what's ours, he replied. That ship holds more than just gold and jewels. You know that now. We've been tracking it for years. It was only a matter of time before someone found it. But we can't let it fall into the wrong hands. The wrong hands? I repeated, confused. What do you mean? Who else is after it? He didn't answer directly, but his eyes flickered to the older man standing silently by the dock. I felt a chill run through me. This was bigger than I thought. These weren't just treasure hunters. There was something more to their intentions, something far more dangerous. As the younger man continued to speak, I realized that the treasure was not just about money. It was about power. The ship, hidden for so long, was the key to a secret that could change the world. But it wasn't just about what the ship held. It was about who controlled it. And now, I was caught in the middle. I glanced over at Ash, who had been quiet the entire time. His ears were back, his body tense, and I could tell he didn't trust these men either. His growl was low, a warning to anyone who might try to threaten us. I knew I had to make a decision. If I gave them what they wanted, I risked losing everything. But if I didn't, I had no idea what lengths they would go to in order to take it from me. The ship was mine. I had uncovered its secret, and I couldn't let it slip away. But I also knew I couldn't face these men alone. I needed to find a way to protect the ship, to make sure its power didn't fall into the wrong hands. Without a word, I backed away from the men, my hand instinctively reaching for the key that had unlocked the ship's secrets. The younger man noticed the movement and narrowed his eyes. You think you can hide from us? He sneered. You can't stop what's already been set in motion. Maybe, I replied, my voice steady. But I'm not going down without a fight. With that, I turned and hurried below deck, Ash close behind me. I knew I couldn't let them know where the treasure was hidden. I had to protect it, no matter what it took. The ship felt like a living entity, its walls creaking as if they, too, knew the danger that was closing in. I took a deep breath, trying to clear my head. The key was still in my pocket, and with it, the knowledge that I had discovered something powerful. But I had no idea what to do next. As I paced the deck, my mind raced. I needed to think fast. These men weren't just after treasure, they were after control. They wanted to harness the power hidden within the ship and use it for their own purposes. And if I didn't act quickly, they would. Take it from me. I had to come up with a plan, something that would keep the ship's secrets safe. But I didn't know who I could trust. The journal, the letters, the strange symbols, they all pointed to a network of people who had protected the ship for generations. But who were they? And how could I possibly stop these men from finding the treasure? I had no answers. But I knew I had to do something. As I looked out at the water, I realized that the ship was more than just a physical structure. It was a symbol, a key to something much larger. The world had been waiting for someone like me to discover its secrets, but now that I had, the responsibility was mine to bear. The ship had chosen me, but I couldn't do it alone. I needed help, and I had to act fast. I could feel the weight of the key in my pocket, the weight of everything that had brought me to this moment. It was up to me to decide what would happen next. I had come here looking for a second chance, and now I was faced with a decision that could change everything. Would I protect the ship's secrets, or would I let them fall into the hands of those who would use them for their own gain? The answer was clear. I wasn't going to let the ship's legacy be destroyed. I would fight for it, no matter what. I had no time to waste. The men were getting closer, and the weight of the ship's secret hung over me like a storm cloud, threatening to break. I couldn't let it fall into their hands. The key in my pocket, the journals, the maps, they were all part of something much bigger than I had realized. It wasn't just treasure. It was history, a legacy waiting to be discovered, and now it was my responsibility to protect it. I couldn't face them alone. The older man by the dock had been silent the whole time, but I could see the calculating look in his eyes. He was the type of person who had dealt with threats before, and I could feel the danger radiating off him. It wasn't just about the ship anymore. It was about control. If they got their hands on the ship's secret, it could change everything. I had to act fast. The ship was large, sprawling, with layers of hidden rooms and compartments. But I had learned its layout, studied its history, and I knew there was one place I hadn't explored, yet it felt like the key to everything. I grabbed Ash's leash and hurried toward the back of the ship, hoping I wasn't being watched. I needed to get to the lower hold, where the final pieces of the puzzle seemed to be hidden. I hadn't felt the urgency until now, but every step I took toward the hold felt like a countdown. As I approached the hatch, I stopped, my breath caught in my chest. The door that led to the lower deck had always been locked. At least, I thought it was locked. But now, there it was, slightly ajar. My heart pounded. I could feel the presence of the men behind me, but the pull of the mystery was too strong to ignore. I stepped inside. The hold was dark, the air thick with the smell of salt and old wood. My flashlight flickered as I moved deeper into the space. It was colder down here, the temperature dropping noticeably the further I went. Then I saw it. A large, wooden chest, placed neatly in the corner, as if waiting for me. I hadn't seen it before. This chest was unlike the others on the ship. It wasn't just old. It was sealed with a thick iron band, and its edges were marked with symbols I recognized from the journal. This was it. The final secret. I couldn't believe it. I knew that inside this chest lay the answers I had been searching for. I approached slowly, my hand trembling as I reached for the lock. The silver key was still in my pocket, but something about the lock seemed different, almost as if it had been waiting for me to unlock it all along. With a deep breath, I inserted the key into the lock. It clicked open with a sound that seemed to echo through the ship. The chest creaked as I opened it, revealing a collection of ancient scrolls and a worn leather-bound book. But what really caught my eye was the object resting on top. A small, ornate box, no larger than a bread loaf, but it was heavy. The intricate carvings on the box matched the ones in the journal. This box was the heart of the ship's secret. I carefully picked it up, feeling the weight of it in my hands. As soon as I touched it, I felt a strange energy surge through me. The box seemed to hum, as if it were alive. My heart raced. This was what they were after, the power hidden in this ship, in this box. The letters had warned of the danger, but I hadn't understood just how real it was until now. I needed to leave, but I couldn't bring myself to close the chest. The truth was, I was afraid of what would happen next. The box was calling to me, and I knew that opening it could change everything. As I stood there, the ship seemed to groan, as if it was alive, reacting to the discovery. I could feel the weight of history in the air, pressing down on me. The ship was no longer just a vessel. It was a living, breathing entity, and it was watching me. I didn't know how much time I had before the men arrived. I could hear their footsteps above, their voices growing louder. I had no choice but to act. But what if opening the box was a mistake? What if I was unleashing something I couldn't control? But it was too late for second-guessing. I had come this far, and there was no turning back. The ship had chosen me. Now, I had to decide what to do with it. Slowly, I opened the box. Inside, there was a small, gleaming stone, smooth, black, and reflective, like nothing I had ever seen before. The moment I touched it, everything around me changed. The room seemed to blur, the walls shifting like waves in the ocean. I could hear a voice, soft at first, then growing louder, almost as if it was coming from the ship itself. It was the voice of the ship's original owner, or so I assumed. The words were indistinct, but the meaning was clear. I had unlocked something ancient, something that had been hidden for a reason. This was the power I had been seeking, but at what cost? I stood frozen, holding the stone in my hand, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. I could feel the stone pulsing in my hand, its energy thrumming like a heartbeat, growing stronger with every second. The ship seemed to come alive around me, its creaks and groans turning into a low, almost rhythmic hum, as if it had been waiting for this moment for centuries. The voice in the air, distant yet familiar, grew louder, but the words were still jumbled, slipping through my mind like a dream fading upon waking. I tried to concentrate, to understand what it was trying to tell me, but the more I focused, the more I realized that this wasn't just a warning, it was a plea. The stone, the box, the ship, they were all connected, bound by an ancient force that had been hidden from the world for so long. I felt my stomach tighten, the weight of the responsibility settling on my shoulders. I wasn't just holding a treasure. I was holding the key to something much greater, something that could change everything. But the question was, what was I supposed to do with it now? The door to the ship's hidden chamber had already opened, and I had seen what lay inside. But this stone felt different. It was as if I had unlocked a new layer, a deeper part of the ship's history, one that had been buried long before it was abandoned. I glanced back at the chest I had found earlier, the one that had seemed to hold all the answers. But now, with the stone in my hand, I knew that there was more to it than just the treasure it held. This wasn't just about wealth. It was about the power the ship had been hiding all these years, the power that had drawn me in and now, just as quickly, had ensnared me. As the hum of the ship grew louder, I could feel the floor beneath me shift. The ship seemed to be reacting to the stone, its walls creaking, its metal groaning as if it were stretching towards something or someone. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, a sense of danger creeping in. I wasn't alone. I turned sharply, expecting to see the two men who had confronted me earlier. But there was nothing. The ship was empty, or so I thought. The air seemed to thicken, and the shadows in the corners of the room deepened. I had the distinct feeling that I wasn't just being watched by the men from the dock anymore. The ship itself was aware of me, of the stone I held, and it was waiting for me to make a choice. The sudden realization hit me like a freight train. The ship wasn't just a vessel, it was a living thing. It had been built to protect this secret, and now that the secret had been unlocked, it was ready to act. But how? And why? My breath quickened as I took a step back, my mind racing. The stone in my hand seemed to grow heavier, its power intensifying with every passing second. I had to make a decision. I could feel the ship pressing in on me, its energy surrounding me, and I knew that whatever happened next would change my life forever. I had been running from my past, from the mistakes I had made, from the life I had left behind. But this ship, this treasure, it was my future now. I had to decide what kind of future I wanted. The choice wasn't just about keeping the ship's secret or letting the men take it from me. It was about what I would do with the power it held. Could I use it for good? Or would I fall victim to the same darkness that had claimed others before me? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision pressing on my chest. The hum of the ship was now a constant vibration in the air, making my skin tingle, my heart race. I looked down at the stone, now glowing faintly in the dim light, and I knew that I couldn't just walk away from it. The ship had chosen me for a reason. But what that reason was, I had yet to discover. The moment stretched out, the weight of it pressing down on me like a storm. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the low thrum of the ship's heartbeat. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the vibration stopped. The air grew still, and for a moment, I thought I had imagined it. But when I looked up, I saw it. The door to the hidden chamber, the one I had thought was sealed, was now wide open. I could hear something coming from within, a soft, distant sound, like the whisper of the past. I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew I had to find out. Without thinking, I walked toward the door, the stone still gripped tightly in my hand. As I stepped through the threshold, the room beyond seemed to open up, revealing more than I could have ever imagined. The walls were lined with old relics, strange symbols, and artifacts that told the story of the ship's origin. But in the center of the room was what truly took my breath away. A large, ancient altar stood there, covered in dust and cobwebs, its surface etched with the same symbols that were on the stone. And at the base of the altar, a single inscription, the legacy of the chosen. It was then that I understood. The ship wasn't just a treasure chest, it was a test. and I was the one who had passed it. I stood in the center of the room, staring at the altar in front of me. The stone in my hand still pulsed with energy, and the inscriptions on the altar seemed to glow faintly, as if they were waiting for me to take the next step. I had unlocked the ship's secrets, but I wasn't sure what came next. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on me. This wasn't just about treasure or gold. It was about a legacy, a power that had been hidden away for centuries. And now, I was the one who had discovered it. The words on the altar, the legacy of the chosen, echoed in my mind. I felt the truth of it, but I still didn't fully understand. The ship had been built to protect this secret, and now I had been chosen to carry that responsibility. But what did it mean to be chosen? Was I really ready to protect what I had uncovered? Could I handle the weight of what lay ahead? The door to the chamber had closed behind me, and I was alone with the power that the ship had kept hidden for so long. I could feel the presence of the men from earlier, the ones who had tried to claim the ship for themselves. They were still out there, waiting for me to make a mistake. I had no doubt they were watching, and I couldn't let them take what was rightfully mine. But the ship was more than just a treasure chest. It was a doorway to something much bigger, something that could change everything. I had to make a decision. I walked closer to the altar, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The room seemed to hold its breath, as if it, too, was waiting for me to make the next move. I could see the patterns on the altar, symbols that matched those on the stone I had found. The ship's secret was starting to unravel, but I needed to understand it completely. I needed to know what this was all leading to. Slowly, I placed the stone on the altar. The moment it touched the surface, the room seemed to shift. The air grew warmer, the faint hum of the ship growing louder, like a heartbeat beneath my feet. A deep rumble filled the space, and the walls seemed to come alive. The stone in my hand began to glow, brighter and brighter, until it illuminated the entire room. I stepped back, a sense of awe and fear sweeping over me. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I could feel the power surging through the ship, through the very air around me. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the glow faded. The hum of the ship died down, and everything returned to silence. But the altar had changed. Where the stone had rested, a new inscription appeared, one I hadn't seen before. It was written in the same strange language as the journal, but this time, I could understand it. To the one who has unlocked the secret, the journey begins. The words sent a chill through me. The ship wasn't just holding a treasure, it was holding a purpose, a mission, and I was the one who had been chosen to fulfill it. But what was the journey? What did it mean to be chosen? I didn't have all the answers, but one thing was clear. The discovery of the ship was only the beginning. I had unlocked a door to a world I didn't fully understand, a world that could change everything. The stone in my hand had been the key, but it was only a small part of the puzzle. I could feel the weight of the responsibility pressing on me, but there was no turning back now. The ship had chosen me, and I had to see this through. As I stood there, alone in the chamber, I realized that the power I held wasn't just physical, it was something deeper. The legacy of the ship was mine to protect, and I would do whatever it took to keep it safe. But I knew that I couldn't do it alone. The ship's secret was too important, too powerful, for one person to handle. I had to find others who could help me carry this burden. And as I thought about that, I felt a strange pull. The ship was calling me to something more, something beyond what I could see. The journey wasn't just about finding treasure or power. It was about understanding the true purpose of the ship and the legacy it carried. And that was something I couldn't do alone. I stood there, staring at the inscription on the altar, feeling the weight of what it implied. The words, "To the one who has unlocked the secret, the journey begins," seemed to resonate in my chest, a deep echo that made the air around me feel thick, almost alive. The ship had chosen me, and with that came a responsibility that I could not yet fully comprehend. The stone in my hand pulsed faintly, as if urging me to take the next step. But where was I supposed to go? What did this journey entail? I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far bigger than just me. There was something ancient and powerful here, and I was simply the one who had stumbled upon it. I turned slowly, looking at the ship's darkened corridors, the rusted decks, and the endless stretch of the ocean beyond. This wasn't just about treasure anymore. It wasn't even about uncovering history. This ship, this mysterious, living thing, was a vessel for something greater, something that had been hidden for a reason. The decision was mine, but it felt as though the ship itself was guiding me, pushing me forward. The hum of the ship seemed to grow louder, filling the space around me, and for a moment, I wondered if the ship was alive in a way I hadn't yet understood. The stone, the journal, the inscriptions, they were all part of something more than a simple treasure hunt. I wasn't just protecting a fortune. I was protecting knowledge, power, and a legacy that stretched across generations. And now, I had to decide what to do with it. As I walked back toward the deck, the weight of the stone heavy in my pocket, I felt the presence of those men who had tried to claim the ship. They were still out there, waiting for me to slip up. But I had no intention of letting them take what was mine. The ship had been abandoned, but now, I realized, it was never meant to stay hidden forever. The journey I had been called to embark on was only just beginning, and I couldn't do it alone. I needed help. The stone, as powerful as it was, wasn't the answer. The answer was in understanding the full scope of what I had discovered. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the ship, I realized that this wasn't just a battle for wealth. It was a battle for something far more important. This was about protecting the knowledge and power that had been hidden away for so long. I wasn't just searching for treasure. I was searching for the truth. And to find that truth, I had to follow the ship's call. It was clear to me now that the journey was not just about uncovering secrets. It was about protecting them. As the days passed, I spent hours going over the documents I had found in the chest, piecing together the ship's history. The more I read, the more I realized how much was at stake. The ship had been built by an ancient group, one that had protected the secret for centuries. But why? What was so important that it had to be hidden away like this? The journal hinted at a larger purpose, but it was vague, filled with riddles and half-truths. It wasn't enough. I needed to know more. One night, as I sat on the deck, staring out at the endless horizon, I made a decision. I would leave the ship for a while, go to the nearest town, and find anyone who might know about its history. There had to be someone who could help me understand what I had uncovered. I couldn't do this alone. The ship was powerful, but its power was nothing if I didn't know how to wield it. The next morning, I set off, taking nothing but the journal, the stone, and the key. I left Ash behind, knowing that the dog would be safe on the ship for now. I wasn't sure how long I would be gone, but I had to find answers. As I walked down the dock, the ship behind me seemed to watch me, its dark silhouette looming in the distance. I knew I was leaving something important behind, but I had to take this step. The journey was bigger than me, and I needed to find the others who could help me understand the ship's true purpose. What I had discovered wasn't just about wealth. It was about understanding the legacy I had uncovered and the responsibility that came with it. The ship was more than just a place. It was a key, and it was up to me to figure out how to use it. As I reached the edge of the town, I felt a sense of anticipation building inside me. This was it, the next step in my journey. The answers I needed were out there, and I was determined to find them. I had only been in town for a few hours, but already I could sense something was off. The moment I set foot on the cobbled streets, I was met with whispers. People eyeing me, murmuring behind closed doors, and the occasional glance over their shoulders. It felt like I had entered a place full of secrets, where everyone knew something but wasn't quite ready to share. I made my way to the local inn, a small building with weathered wood and dim windows. The innkeeper, an older man with a kind face, greeted me, but his eyes darted to the journal I was holding in my hand. I hadn't realized how tightly I was clutching it until I saw his gaze. I needed information, and I wasn't about to waste any more time. "You've been here before?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I took a seat by the fire. The man nodded, his fingers trembling as he wiped down a glass. "Long time ago," he replied softly. "People don't come around here much anymore. Not since the storm." I looked up, a little confused. "The storm? You're not from around here, are you?" he asked, leaning forward. This place had seen things. Strange things. My curiosity piqued. I leaned in. "Like what?" The innkeeper hesitated, glancing toward the door. "Old stories. Ships lost in the mist. Things people left behind. That ship of yours," he trailed off, as if realizing too late he'd said too much. I clenched my jaw, trying to remain calm. "What about the ship?" I asked. "What do you know about it?" The innkeeper shook his head, as if trying to shake off something he didn't want to remember. "Some things are better left alone, friend. Not all treasures are meant to be found." I stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in. There it was again, this feeling that I wasn't the first person to come across the ship, that someone else had been searching for it long before me. The innkeeper's expression darkened, and I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Fear, maybe. If you're looking for answers, you might want to talk to Clara. She's the one who knows all the old stories. Lives out by the cliffs, near the old lighthouse. The mention of the lighthouse sent a chill through me. I had seen the lighthouse from the ship, its light flickering in the distance, but I hadn't thought much of it. Now, it seemed like the key to unlocking the mystery I was tangled up in. I thanked the innkeeper and set out toward the cliffs. The town's narrow streets gave way to winding paths that led up the rocky hill to the lighthouse. As I climbed, the air grew heavier, thick with mist, and the distant sound of the waves crashing against the rocks echoed in the distance. I could feel the ship's call in the back of my mind, tugging at me, urging me to hurry. Reaching the top, I found the lighthouse standing alone against the sky, its structure battered by the elements, but still standing firm, as if guarding something far more important than just the shore. A woman stood at the entrance, her long coat billowing in the wind. She was older than I expected, but her eyes were sharp, the kind of eyes that saw through things. "You're here for the ship," she said, as if she already knew why I had come. I nodded, unsure of what to say next. "I know what you've found," she continued, her voice low and steady. "And I know what you're looking for. The ship's legacy is not just treasure. It's a calling." I felt a shiver run down my spine. How could she know all this? "What do you mean, a calling?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The ship has always been a protector. A keeper of secrets," she explained, stepping aside to let me enter the lighthouse. The inside was dim, filled with old books and maps scattered across wooden tables. It wasn't just built to hide treasure. It was built to guard something far more dangerous. She picked up a map from the table and handed it to me. It was a map of the coastline, but it was old, the ink faded, and the edges torn. "This is the true map," Clara said. "It leads to a place deeper than the ship, something buried beneath the earth. That's what people have been searching for centuries." I stared at the map, my heart racing. The ship, the stone, the key, all of it had led me here. But now, I realized the treasure was not the end, it was just the beginning. Clara continued, "You've awakened it, but it's not just about finding what's hidden. It's about protecting it, understanding it. The legacy of the ship, the power it holds, it can change the world, but it can also destroy it." I stood there, gripping the map, overwhelmed by the weight of her words. My journey had just taken a darker turn. I wasn't just hunting for treasure. I was protecting something much more dangerous than I had ever imagined. The choices ahead of me were not just about survival. They were about the fate of the world itself. The weight of Clara's words hung in the air between us, a heavy truth that I was only beginning to understand. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was the keeper of something far more powerful, something that could either change the world for the better or destroy it entirely. As I stood there in the lighthouse, holding the map, I felt the enormity of the task ahead. The ship had chosen me, but I didn't know if I was ready to take on the responsibility that came with it. Clara's gaze never left me as she spoke. "The map is only part of it. The real key is understanding the ship's purpose. You've awakened something ancient, but now you must decide if you're ready to protect it. Many have come before you, searching for this treasure, but none were able to unlock its full potential. You must be different." The uncertainty gnawed at me. Could I really protect what I had found? The ship had been waiting for someone to unlock its secrets, but now that I had, I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to carry the weight. I looked at Clara, my voice barely above a whisper. "How do I protect it? How do I know what to do with all this power?" Clara paused, her expression thoughtful. "You'll know when the time comes. The ship will guide you, just as it guided you here. But the journey you're on isn't just about finding the treasure. It's about understanding what it truly means to hold it." She gestured to the map in my hands. "This map leads to a place deeper than you've gone so far, a place that holds the answers. But it won't be easy. The ship's legacy isn't something that can be controlled by just anyone. It will test you, and it will challenge you." I felt a shiver run down my spine. The idea that the ship itself could test me was unsettling. I had already felt the weight of its secrets pressing on me, but now I was realizing that the real test had only just begun. Clara continued, her voice firm yet gentle. "You're not just holding treasure, you're holding the fate of the world. The power in that ship is not meant for one person alone. It's meant to be shared, to be protected by those who understand its true value. Her words made sense, but they also filled me with fear. I had come to the ship with no expectations other than to escape my past, to find something better. But now, I understood that I had found something far more dangerous than I could have imagined. The ship, with its power, had found me for a reason. I wasn't just a discoverer of secrets. I was a guardian. You must go, Clara said, breaking my thoughts. The ship is calling you. The next part of the journey is yours to take. But remember this, you are not alone. The ship's legacy is bigger than you, bigger than all of us. It is up to you to decide what to do with it. I stood there in silence, taking in everything Clara had said. I could feel the ship's pull, distant but unmistakable, like a magnet drawing me toward the next step. I had no choice but to follow it. I couldn't turn back now. As I left the lighthouse, the mist from the ocean wrapped around me, almost as if it was guiding me back to the ship. The air was thick with uncertainty, but I knew one thing. I couldn't let the ship's legacy fall into the wrong hands. The men who had tried to take it from me before, they were still out there, and they would stop at nothing to claim the ship's power for themselves. I had to protect it, but I also had to learn what it truly meant to hold such power. The journey was only just beginning, and the real test was yet to come. As I approached the ship, I could feel its presence in the air, a force that seemed to breathe alongside me. The stone in my pocket pulsed once again, stronger now, almost like a heartbeat. The ship had chosen me, and now I had to choose whether to embrace its power or let it slip away. There was no turning back. The ship was waiting. The legacy was mine to protect, and I would do whatever it took to keep it safe. But first, I had to understand its purpose, and that meant going deeper into the unknown, facing whatever challenges awaited me. The final chapter of this story had yet to be written, and I was ready to write it. Whatever it took, I would see this journey through to the end. In this gripping tale of adventure and discovery, we follow a homeless veteran who stumbles upon an abandoned ship, unraveling secrets that could change the world. As the journey unfolds, the veteran must confront dangerous forces, hidden treasures, and his own doubts. This is not just another of the many veteran stories. It's one of deep responsibility, hidden legacies, and untold power. As he uncovers the truth, the ship's call grows stronger, drawing him into a mysterious world where not everything is as it seems. Throughout the story, the veteran learns that being chosen comes with great sacrifices, and every choice made could lead to salvation or ruin. This incredible chapter in Veteran Stories explores the weight of responsibility, the mystery of the unknown, and the fight to protect a secret far older than anyone can imagine. With the discovery of a powerful legacy, our hero finds himself caught in a battle against forces who will stop at nothing to claim what he's found. This veteran's journey has only just begun, and the fate of everything rests in his hands. The final chapters of this tale will keep you on the edge of your seat as the veteran fights to preserve a world-altering secret, proving once again that the most powerful veteran stories often begin with unexpected discoveries. The power of this hidden legacy will challenge everything he knows and leave him questioning what it truly means to protect the future.